Thank you very much, Janina, and hello and welcome everyone to the very full suggest. This is Newsrooms adapting. It obviously is a time of crisis, and it's going to be very interesting, I think, to hear, particularly from the three fantastic speakers that we have during this webinar. So my name's Nigel Vincent. I run Newsroom for EMEA, and here's the agenda. I'm going to be accompanied by my colleague, the Senior Account Publishing Director, Verena Colan, for part of this as well. And here are the three agenda items. So shifting media consumption, we're going to talk, we're going to show you some data that we've gathered from across the network of websites that we work with at Taboola. The second session is adapting to challenge, where it's the discussion, the Q&A session. And I urge you to ask questions if you'd like to do so. And we've got three fantastic speakers, as we've mentioned before, from Heute, Ynet and Die Welt. And then the new normal, we're going to summarize, where we're heading after this crisis. There's going to be a new digital landscape. We're all using different tools and we're adapting to operating remotely and so on. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so the data that you're going to see today is from Taboola Newsroom, which is the real-time audience analytics platform provided by Taboola. We work with about 400 premium publishers across the world, and the audience analytics platform provides insight into where your traffic is coming from, how people are engaging with your content in real time, largely to the last 30 days, and also it has an aspect of covering kind of topics and themes that we see are trending and people are very interested in across our platform, and comparing that with your own coverage. So if we look at, this is a typical site at the moment, and I'm sure you'll recognize the traffic pattern that we're looking at. So in the last 30 days, this is an example site, one of our publisher partners in Spain. You can see what we're looking at here is the page views running across the last 30 days. The little orange squiggly line in the middle is our average baseline. So we average traffic across our platforms for the last 5 weeks. And you can see, particularly since the beginning of March, that traffic has ballooned for obvious reasons. And I'm sure it's a pattern that you recognize for your own analytics. Conversely, at the same time, sports traffic, this is one of our sports sites that we work with. And you can see here from around the middle of March, actually a couple of weeks ago, sports traffic has very much declined. It's very much under the average. And, it does, and that's for obvious reasons as well, but it does kind of pose questions and dilemmas, I suppose, for newsrooms in terms of should we deploy our journalists? Can sports journalists work elsewhere? And one of our speakers in particular is going to talk about this in the next session. If we look at the overall media consumption, if I just move that, we can see that if we're looking right across all of our EMEA publishers, again, we have the pattern of increase, and you can see that traffic across all of the sites that we work with has increased around 74% in the last, certainly since the start of March. And if we look a little bit closer into that, we can see here, sorry, let's get the next one. We can see here that if we look at the particular where that traffic is coming from, we can actually see quite significant growth in direct traffic. So you're looking at here week-on-week direct traffic growth across the EMEA publishers that we work with since the beginning of January, actually. And you can see in recent weeks that direct traffic has really significantly grown, which is an indication, I guess, of loyalty, of people coming back to the sites for news and information that they trust. So it's a good indication of, people really need news that they can trust in a moment like this. And subsequently as well, we work with several publishers on subscription. So we identify content that is converting users to become paid for subscribers. And if you look again, week on week growth here on this chart here, you can see certainly since the beginning of March, in the last sort of 2-3 weeks, this is just a snapshot of some of the publishers that we work with. You can see the number of conversions. So these are articles that are converting people to become paid for subscribers has risen, quite significantly. And again, I guess for publishing industry, that's a good indication that people are very much in need of trusted, good news and information, and perhaps they're willing to pay for it as well. We've also had a little look at some significant referrals as well, looking across the data that we have from these publishers. And in particular, we've seen growth from WhatsApp, from Line, and from Newsrooms, which is an app that particularly focuses on local news and discovering breaking news in your local area, which I guess with all of us working from home at the moment is of significant interest. And we can see that the largest increase has come from this app. The overall page views are not huge at the moment, but the increase is significant. So these are new sources of traffic. And I'm just going to go pass on to my colleague Verena now. She's going to talk about the recirculation platform within Taboola, which can drive significant traffic as well. Over to you, Verena.
Thank you, Nigel. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, basically, there's lots of KPIs we can look at when using Newsroom or Backstage, but I'm looking into Backstage also every day, and this is just one example of a very prestigious news publisher who saw a significant organic CTR increase over the Corona period. So this example shows over 40% organic CTR increase. And as Nigel already mentioned, we have the page view increase, but we also see that the CTR is increasing at the same rate, which is great news. And yeah, so I just wanted to mention that in relation to the feed, because I know sometimes we are a bit cautious about how long the feed can be below the article and things like this. But in situations like this, the feed allows us to really show the content that clicks the best and use all the space we have for that. Back to you, Nigel.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Karina. Yeah, that's a very significant increase there. Back to Newsroom then. So we've been looking at, we have an area of Newsroom called Topic Insights, which basically looks at the topics and themes that, that our readers are consuming. So we analyze all the articles that we have access to, and we use natural language processing and artificial intelligence to read those articles and to make sense of those articles and to bring out the topic or theme of those articles that we think those articles are about. And if we look at the topic of coronavirus and the related topics next to that, we've plotted this kind of graph that gives you, this is kind of real time, so it changes, it fluctuates based on some of the news of the day, but it just gives you a kind of an overall impression, I suppose, really of how much coverage how coverage of coronavirus and related topics has dominated the news in recent weeks. It's kind of an obvious thing to say, I suppose, but to look at it like that is quite stark, I guess, and particularly the Italy coverage there, which is 89%. And if we look a little bit more in depth on some of those areas, we're looking at French topic insights here and German topic insights over the last 7 days. So we're really analysing the content that we're reading and we're discovering across our platforms. And you can see these enormous circles here are representing either coronavirus topic itself or those related subjects. So it's just to give you an illustration of how it's dominating any other type of news. But there is other news around there. And if we look here at the UK topic insights, so we're having a look here, we're analysing the topics being generated from the content that we're reading across all of our publishers that we work with in the UK, and we have about 80% coverage across the UK. We can see here that the top, we pulled out the top coronavirus topics, and we can see here that obviously the main word is generating 260 million. This is in the last 7 days page views, and these are the related words, the topics that we found that are of particular significant importance, all the way down to toilet paper, which I'm sure is still significant for many of us. And then if we look at the non-coronavirus topics as well, there is hope still for other content, and really largely that's dominated by sport and kind of showbiz, kind of celebrity content. Sport, I mean, the fact that there is no sport is kind of news as well, isn't it? And in terms of, when are these big matches going to be played? When is Liverpool, when are Liverpool going to win the league if they do? And so on. And some of these stories here are very celebrity focused. in fact, Joe Wicks, for those of you who don't know, is a sort of nutritionist kind of keep fit guy that's been operating free PE lessons for children via YouTube since the lockdown began. So in a way, they're non-coronavirus, but they are kind of related, aren't they, to the actual situation. And here, just for fun, actually, I just found, I'm ranking the supermarkets in terms of topics that we found across the UK. And that's just an indication of the coverage and maybe how popular some of those supermarkets are, because obviously supermarkets are of importance to us all at the moment. Okay, and the next slide, and now our speakers, So this is the best bit. We have 3 speakers at the webinar today. We have the names have dropped off. Actually, that's a bit. We have Maren from Welt. We have Draw from Ynet, and we have Clemens from Heute. So apologies that your names have dropped off there. But Maren, would you like to take the floor? Hello, Maren.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Can everybody hear me? Did that work? Okay, great. Yeah, hi. I just see I'm looking at the picture and see that my hair has grown a little bit. So it's obviously an older picture, but I hope you might recognize me. Anyway, yeah, my name is Maren, and I'm working as managing editor for Die Welt. My responsibility is to edit our homepage, and we are using the word pilot for it because I'm the person who's deciding which article is on top and where is really the spotlight, on which stories is the spotlight. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. Our company, Axel Springer, has 16,000 employees right now, and to my knowledge, well, a large proportion of them are working remote right now. So home office, yeah, obviously home office because the cafes and everything is closed. We are dealing quite well with it, I have to say, because yeah, at least this crisis worked as an accelerator for us. What wasn't possible a few weeks ago is now possible, and we see that a lot of my colleagues are suddenly interested in, for example, Taboola. I mean, they know what Taboola is. They might have used it some time, but not really on a regular basis. And before the Corona crisis, they would come to me and ask, how is my article performing? How many subscription does it already have other people interested in it? So, and I would look, go to Newsroom Taboola, look at the numbers, and then give them a feedback. And because of the home office situation, I just can't do that anymore because, you know, you have to chat all the time with a lot of people and you can't deal with single persons. So now they're using it themselves more and more, and this is yeah, this is actually very good. And so that's at least a positive outcome for us, and I hope that this will continue in the future, and hopefully without the coronavirus. I can absolutely confirm what Nigel and Verena just presented, that we are seeing a lot of interest right now in Corona topics in general, and so we really, I would say that journalism made a comeback, and we're very happy about that. That at least the people are interested in valued information, because there are pessimists who would say that this hasn't been the case in the last years. And we have been working with Taboola on A/B testing, and we use it a lot actually. And in this crisis, because a lot more readers are on our homepage right now, this is actually even more useful for us. So how does it work? We put a story on our homepage, and it's a very good story, and it's behind a paywall. And we want to know, we have a lot of different headlines for this story, because let's say it's a story about a hospital in Bergamo in Italy, and it's behind the paywall. And so we have a headline which is a quotation from a nurse, for example, or we can just give it a very factual headline. And we would want to know which headline is more interesting for our readers and which headline is more, is selling the story actually better, subscription-wise. And then we are doing A/B tests. And by now, I think the technique is not
I think we just lost Maren. Are you back, Maren?
No.
Let me just.
Oh, sorry. There was something wrong, I guess? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, okay.
Dropped off for a few seconds.
Oh, okay.
We have you back.
Yeah, sorry I don't know. I think it was the internet performance, I fear. Okay. Yeah, so I was trying to explain how our A/B testing is working in general, and it was working like this before, but now it's even more useful because we have a lot more readers on our homepage. It's actually quite interesting to know what the readers like more. I was speaking about an article, for example, which is about the hospital situation in Italy. And I already said that. Everybody, I wasn't sure where I logged off, so I'm not sure where I logged off. Hello?
You started with talking about it, and then the connection was interrupted.
Yeah, okay. So then, yeah. And with the A/B testing, we can see that, for example, our old headline is not working and the new headline or any new headline actually is working better. So we then just opt for the headline which has the biggest interest, which we can see via Taboola. And this, as I said, has been very important before and is even more important now. And this is very important for us in these times. And this was it actually.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Maren. That's great. If anyone has any questions, we can ask now or at the end of the session. Thank you very much. Dror, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my name is Dror, as Nigel said. I'm from Ynet in Israel. I'm going to focus on something a bit different. I'll just run through what everyone's doing, I guess. So we started working remotely, obviously, most of us at least. This was pretty smooth transition. We had time, because the pandemic got to Israel pretty late. So we had time to run drills on our news desk. We had like a 1-hour drill of working remotely, then another one for a whole shift with people doing backup here. And by the time Israel was on lockdown, we pretty much had it taken care of. So it ran pretty smooth. Still have some problems, but not that serious. And the whole news coverage wasn't a tremendous effort with relation to having the people to cover it, because we were kind of in war mode. We had the last elections were held on March 2nd, and by Friday the same week the schools closed and Israel was in lockdown. So the whole people who used to work on elections and the whole sections on the front page which were dedicated to the elections just went from elections to coronavirus. So that was pretty simple. And the TV studio and the news desk were already in in this war mode of work, what we did, what I do want to focus on is off-topic content in Ynet during the coronavirus crisis. So ever since this whole crisis started, we put a big emphasis on trying to have enough positive content and enough a break from reality. To have a break from reality on our front page, we try to keep at least one article out of the top 4, which gives a positive vibe. So we try to put some emphasis on sentiment from the sentiment that we live with our users. So it's trying to find a balance between covering this as a serious topic, since we do want people to follow the instructions and not just wander outside. And on the other hand, because in Israel, this isn't a crisis in like it is in Italy or Spain, most people are just stuck at home. This is what it means for them. So we started a section right away. We started a section which was kind of an isolation section, which in Hebrew it sounds better because isolation and entertainment sound pretty much alike. So we had an isolation section in our site, which had exercising content and recipes and dating advice or relationship advice for this time, and a lot of parenting stuff, activities you can do with the children. We also started playing with the hierarchy of the content on our site, specifically on our mobile feed. So if sport was really, as Nigel said, we've seen a huge uplift in traffic, but not in all areas. So of course, the news section enjoys it the most, but we've immediately noticed that we see it on other sections too, like sex and dating suddenly got a tremendous uplift in traffic. So we started playing with the order. The first thing we did was to raise the parenting and children sections higher in the hierarchy of our mobile feed, and putting the sport and the health, of course, health section, and putting the sports section lower, the travel section, we put it lower. And now we're continuing playing with this, trying to see if maybe we can put food higher and maybe put our auto section lower, since this isn't really a topic that people want to read right now. But even in sections that aren't really relevant to this time, we try to keep enough fresh content which offers a break from reality. So we have our travel section editor is doing amazing work, like virtual tours every day. Today it's Paris, all the virtual tours she found online, and each week is another city, and a whole new sections of aerial photos of different landscapes in Israel. So we always try to find enough stuff to because the news is depressing enough and the reality is depressing enough, we always try to leave enough space for other stuff. It's hard. We try to do that. Another thing we did, you talked about subscriptions earlier, we did the opposite thing. So we have a premium content product that we launched about a year ago. Right when this started, a few days after Israel went on lockdown, we decided to open the articles up for free, all the premium content articles. We did that. Initially, we decided to do it for 14 days, which was the quarantine phase, the quarantine period that was demanded from people who returned from abroad. We still keep it going, so we're gonna end it tonight after 3 weeks, which was, and I think it proved to be helpful in 2 ways. One of them was that it allowed us to offer a lot of great content for people who aren't used to consume it in Ynet. a lot of magazine features and guides and stuff that we normally put behind the paywall. So we had enough content to offer to people, even from our archives, not only stuff that was new. So we had a lot of content to put out that people got to see more of Ynet and to have another reason to come back each day. So that proved to be pretty successful. We got a lot of good feedback, and it also, I think it served a marketing purpose for the premium content product, because a lot of people who didn't sign up until now got to see what they're missing. So we're hoping that by the time we put the paywall back, we'll see an uplift in conversions despite the economic crisis that many people are still dealing with. And as was mentioned before, we try to play with our manpower to help us adapt to what we're dealing with. So we put a lot of the sports section editors to work on other stuff, like our economic section, which is under a lot of pressure at this time. We put a lot of editors to reinforce the news desk. And we also started this chat group that I have with many editors who work in different sections but have experience with news editing, that every time we have a crisis, like every time there's a massive amount of content to be taken care of. So we just put out a call, and we have people coming. We have people telling us who's free, and everyone's free because everyone's home, so they don't have much to do. And so we pretty much use them to help us deal with the amount of news that we're covering. And it helps people to feel part of what we're doing, because it's hard to keep everyone on track when everyone's working from home. I think, as I said, the transition was pretty smooth technically, but managing people who work from home is harder, I guess. And keeping them helping with the news, we found that it also helps keeping them with us, even when they work from home. And we also have, like, to keep I didn't mention before, but to keep the positive vibe, we also have like a good news bulletin every day, which we use for like updates on progress, advancements with researching for a cure, a vaccine, and positive initiatives around Israel and stuff like that. And I think that's it. If you have any questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dror. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really interesting. I've got a couple of questions actually, but I'm going to keep them to the end when we finish all three, and we have got a questions come in as well. But really, really, really interesting. So Clemens, do you want to do your session now, and then let's have a little kind of Q&A session if we can at the end of after all three speakers.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for inviting me. My name is Clemens Pilz. I am the head of digital development for Heute, which is a newspaper and an online news portal in Austria. And I am concerned largely about the technical aspects of keeping a newsroom working under these conditions. So a lot of the things that my colleagues have said kind of resonates with me. I think there are similar experiences all over the board. I will try to not repeat myself or repeat too many of those points. So maybe let me just start by saying that just like any other sector, the media sector in Austria is under a lot of financial stress through Corona. Just to give an example, it's kind of difficult to go outside and pick up a newspaper if you're told all day to stay inside and not go outside, other than to to go to the doctor or anything like that. So for most organizations here, the revenue, a big part of the revenue still comes from print products and print advertising. So this, I guess, puts everybody under pressure. Just speaking broadly for the whole sector, I think. As for online, I think it's looking brighter. I can absolutely confirm that readers are using online media a lot to inform themselves about Corona. We have a tremendous interest in anything that has anything to do with the virus. And I can also confirm what my colleagues have said, that other topics, they just cannot compete, which can lead to frustration among journalists. For instance, it's pretty hard to write about sports when all the sporting events are canceled, and you have to find new ways to write about sports. And I guess today everything is looked at through the lens of Corona. So of course you're going to write, this event is canceled because of Corona, this soccer player has Corona, whatever. And these stories are still read. They still generate traffic. Overall, we have also experienced quite an increase in traffic. One of the more interesting things to me is how peak times have shifted. We recognize that people get up later in the morning, so the early morning is probably not the best time to publish your strongest story of the day. And then I guess before the virus, I think there were more defined peak times. Let's say after lunchtime, when people are on their break from work, they use their smartphone to check the news. And in the evening, after coming home from work, they go online to see what's new. Now, I think the curve is kind of flat, starting lunchtime. And we realized that the interest stays pretty high until late at night. So people are staying up later, of course, if they don't need to go to the office in the morning. And we try to adapt to that by providing interesting stories until late at night, by thinking ahead and trying to provide something new all day, not just for lunchtime or whatever. As of our offices, we also, of course, try to work remotely as much as possible, and only a very small team of editors and journalists is physically present in the newsroom. For those who work at home, communication can be quite difficult. Maybe not so much from the technical side, but from the emotional, maybe from the point of human-to-human contact. We stay in contact with WhatsApp and video conferences, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as going for a quick coffee break or having a talk in person or meeting just by accident and exchanging a few words in the newsroom. It's not the same, and I think there's something lost here. Another challenge, of course, is working with equipment which is privately owned or partly privately owned, which is often not completely up to speed when it comes to processing power or having the newest generation of hardware. And we have found some creative solutions, for instance, using mobile apps to do basic video editing. And I was kind of surprised how much can already be done on a basic iPad, how many video tasks you can complete through this. So I guess all in all, we have proven that we can adapt and we can do a lot of work remotely. Just like Maren said, what seemed impossible just a few weeks ago now just has to work. Senior editors can stay home and work remotely. This was something that was absolutely unthinkable a few weeks or months ago. So we have seen, we are adaptable. We are proud to be adaptable if we have to be, but also something of the interpersonal relationships can get lost in this progress. we have experienced a surge in online traffic across not just our website, but I guess the whole market, and a new interest in live streaming. And like Dora said, creative, I guess, creative ways of offering an escape from harsh realities or offering an alternative program to those bad news. So I think it will have to be seen what the new normal will be after this crisis, and how long this crisis is going to keep us occupied. I think we will survive it, maybe with a new sense of resourcefulness, and I hope also with a new appreciation for online media after print papers are kind of in a hard situation right now. Yeah, and that's it from me.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Clemens. That was really interesting. Just while we've got you, actually, just a quick question that's come through. You mentioned how the different peaks have changed throughout the day. In the morning, kind of mobile rush is not as significant as it once was, because everyone's having a lion by the sound of it. Have you had to change your shift patterns to meet those new peaks? Have you had to reorganize how people work?
Well, we have reorganized some shifts. We try to adapt to, well, we'll write when people want to read it. We try to adapt to our readers. I don't want to go into too much detail about our newsroom here, but yes, there were some changes made, of course.
Thank you. I'm going to read the question out. We've got a few questions that have come in, and if you've got any more questions, please fire away. We have a question from Hannah, directed at Maren, actually. You mentioned about the A/B testing of your headlines and how you're using that to kind of increase conversions and so on. The question was, A/B testing headlines behind the paywall, does this determine whether or not a story is free or paid, or is it just about comparing which headline is more effective for the story?
Yeah, well, in general, for the normal paid article, it's of course to know which headline is more effective. But we have also this, well, we call them hybrids, because they are free and they are given enough time to generate a lot of interest in the social media, and via Twitter and Facebook and all this stuff. And then depends, after 3 hours, sometimes after 24 hours, we drop the paywall. And then it's actually really interesting to do an A/B testing before we drop the paywall, because then we are sure that this is the headline which will gain the biggest attention. And then we can normally be sure when this article is going through all the, on our website, and is going through all the kinds of different social media, then it will get the best headline to also generate subscriptions. And this is functioning pretty well, I have to say.
Excellent, thank you very much. And Dror, we have a question for you about, actually from Maren, but I'll read it out if that's okay. And about lifting the paywall. So obviously that's quite a significant thing to do, and you clearly explain why you wanted to do that in terms of exposing the content and the publicity and the goodwill. Are you afraid that especially new visitors might get used to the free offer, and then when you put the paywall up again, they might resist that?
Okay, so first of all, regarding new visitors, Ynet doesn't really have new visitors usually. Our reach is in our market, in the Israeli market, is pretty all over. It's pretty much Hebrew-speaking adults. So it's not really that we have new visitors, that we have visitors who wouldn't otherwise see the premium content. Regarding if I'm afraid if I don't think they'll stop coming, because they've seen the paywall. They probably saw the paywall before, so I'm not really bothered by that. We also made sure to emphasize the fact that, that it is free for now. So every time we put one of these articles on our front page, the subtitle would start with all the Plus articles are free at this moment or stuff like that, so that they know that this is a time-limited offer and not something that they should be used to it. And we really saw it as an opportunity, because I think we felt that the opportunity we have of exposing this content is bigger than our ability to put articles behind the paywall during this rough period.
Fantastic, thank you very much. We have a question from Tim, and it's really to all three speakers actually. And it's, do you have any tips or tricks on keeping staff connected to one another during this crisis? Clemens, you kind of touched upon that a little bit, but in terms of, you know, video happy hours or fun things that you're doing to kind of to get everyone to kind of you know, to, as you say, to feel part of it and to enjoy what they're doing.
Yes, we do exactly that. We use video happy hours. Is maybe a funny way to say it, but that's basically it. We meet once a day, and anybody who wants to come have a chat can log in. Usually it's quite chaotic in the beginning, and then maybe after 5 to 10 minutes the amount of people is reduced and the discussion is more easily to understand, more easy to understand. But we have found also that it's quite a good way for people just to organize themselves in smaller groups. For instance, if, I don't know, the sports guys might have a hangout, or me and my team are hanging out after work, or talking through Zoom, I guess, or Skype or whatever, and that seems to work quite well. I think happy hours for the whole newsroom sometimes are a little bit chaotic. I don't know, but what techniques or tricks do you use, Roy and Maren?
Maren, have you got any tips or tricks that you're using?
Yeah, basically, also the happy hour get-togethers, and I can absolutely agree. I'm absolutely agreeing with Clemens that it can get chaotic when there are too many people. So I would just, yeah, I would opt for the smaller group, like maybe 4 to 5 people. I know that our video team, for example, is getting together. They are, I think, 4 people, and they're just chatting, everybody having a beer, and they're just, you know, talking about the day, how everything went. And I think this is a good way of just, you know, talking about the problems of the day and what you would normally do maybe during a lunch break, for example. And my team is actually having a silenced video call or audio call all the time. So what we would normally do is, you know, go to one another and say, oh, this is a really good article. I would opt for a paid article here, or this is a really good article for the late hours because it's a softer topic. So just stuff we would shout out to each other in the newsroom. And now we have this silence video call, and it's going on for hours actually. And if I want to shout out, I have an article and say, oh, this is really good, I just unmute myself and tell my colleague who's, for example, right now editing the homepage that this is a good one and where she should put it. And then I mute myself again. So we kind of try to imitate the newsroom atmosphere there a little bit.
Dror, have you got any tips or tricks that you want to divulge?
Not anything special. We try to hold more video meetings and get people to talk. We also do it, but most of the time in smaller chats. smaller chat rooms, which that's how we work normally. So it's not that different from before coronavirus. We try to do it. I think we should do it more often. Probably we'll be doing it more as this progresses, I guess.
Perfect. We have a question from Martin just about specifically around Newsroom and comparing it to other audience analytics platforms. I think it's probably best to maybe to answer that separately from this webinar, and I will follow up after that directly. But we have a question here from Verena actually, and she's saying about, you know, after the crisis is over, you know, do we expect, you know, because traffic has suddenly rocketed very significantly, very quickly, do we think that traffic and CTR will take a dive just as dramatically, or do you think, you know, it will be a gradual decline, or do you think that, you know, all our new users and all the interest that we've gathered will be maintained? Who's going to take this? Maren, do you want to take this? Hello, Maren. Okay, Clemens, what do you think?
Well, I don't expect this situation to last forever, the negative or the positive aspects. I also expect that the traffic at some point is going to go down as well, again. Maybe we can be optimistic and then hope that the level will be elevated in comparison to what it was before this crisis. But I think most people who work in online news know that traffic is going up and down all the time. Sometimes there are weeks where you can just place any story and it's going to be read by a lot of people, and then there are weeks where interest seems just down, or traffic is, the pendulum has swung to the other end. So I expect that this is going to happen.
Fantastic. Okay, anyone else for any questions before we wrap up? Let me share my screen again. Whoa. There, I'll put your names back on the chart there. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for our speakers. That was really insightful and very, very interesting, and I do appreciate your time. Just literally to wrap up, it was funny that we're talking about video happy hours and so on. This is the last section, which is the new normal, which is, I guess, what is going to come out at the other end, and how we've adapted to change and how that's going to transfer on. This little image here was an image from one of our EMEA team meetings last week. There were several pages of little thumbnail pictures. And for some reason, we all had to dress up in beach gear just to make us happy. But it worked incredibly well, and it was a lot of fun. And it's no doubt that, you know, coronavirus has changed the way we work. Remote working, we know, has its challenges. We've had a couple of little ins and outs just today, actually. And for some people, it's very normal, and other people have had to kind of adapt and learn how to use it in a better way. But it's definitely proved doable. And we've risen to the challenge. Communication platforms that have been used by some up until now, like Zoom and perhaps Slack, will become everyday tools of the trade for publishers, large and small. There's no doubt about that. And it's very clear that digital news has never been more essential. You know, the audience growth that we've seen today and we've discussed tells us that readers are pretty much desperate for the latest news and information, for trusted news and information coming direct to your sites. And perhaps judging by some of those figures that we saw earlier, they're actually willing to pay for it as well, especially going forward. Taboola Newsroom is here to help with this digital transformation. You know, we provide real-time audience data that you can act upon, helping you make those key decisions at the right time. So you can grow, you can engage, you can retain, and you can essentially monetize your audience as well. And if anyone would like more information about Newsroom after this webinar, then please do get in contact. But there's no doubt that this is a very significant moment for news publishers everywhere, and indeed for everyone around the world, on a professional level and a personal level. And all there is remaining to say as we leave this webinar is that we at Taboola Newsroom wish you the best of luck, and keep well. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope you found it useful. Many thanks again to our fantastic speakers. Keep safe, keep in touch, and see you soon. And I will just thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.